Okay, this fly is an articulated complex twist bugger, and so it would have been really easy just to do two complex twist buggers in tandem. That would have looked pretty cool, but we've made some modifications to the front section which will make this fly look pretty awesome. Starting out with the Daiichi 2461 hook. This is a size 1, and you can size this however you want. I'm going with a size 1 on the back and a size 1/0 in the front. So I've got some UTC 140 thread in tan, and this color, or this fly, is going to be a tan and white mixture. Okay, I'm going to start out by putting a pretty generous clump of white marabou on, and then I'm going to put some tan marabou on top of that. Okay, a pretty long tail here. Now in the complex twist bugger style, we're going to put 2 pieces of chenille in and 1 piece of schlappen. And so I've got gold tinsel chenille. I've got gold UV polar chenille. And then I've got a nice full piece of white schlappen. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of room here in the front because we're going to add a little, I guess, dubbing loop of some ice dub up front. Okay, I'm going to take the schlappen first, lay down the polar chenille, and then the tinsel chenille, all on top of each other. And then take our fancy gaiter grip tool and crimp those all together. Now, this Stanfo dubbing twister is really nice, but the hooks aren't quite ideal for this complex twist, so I still like to use this regular dubbing twister for it. So I'm going to barely start twisting it, and then I'm going to take my little metal comb and brush it just a little bit before I twist it more. And it doesn't take a lot of twists to get this nice buggy body. Now I'm going to take off the dubbing twister and wrap it forward. And if I wiggle it back and forth, it will kind of take the fibers that are trapped and move them back. Forgot to adjust the vise for this fly. So you're going to want to leave about that much hook shank in the front so that we can tie it off nice and clean. So that's basically our complex twist bugger. A little bit different, but that would be it. Now I'm going to add a little small head of UV tan ice dub. Just make a very small loop. So once we've got that spun up, we want to brush it out before we wrap it. So once we've got that tied in, we're going to brush it out again. And we'll seal it up with some Loon Flow. Okay, so for the front hook, I have a 1/0 Daiichi 2461 with a large sized white cone head, a pearlescent white. I think that's what they're called. But these cone heads really make a fly look cool. And then I'm going to take some 025 or 030 lead, and I'm going to seat the bead head or the cone head in place with it. So I'm going to start by doing about 11 or 12 wraps. I don't know how many that was, so don't correct me in the comments section, or you can. And then kind of come back over the top of those wraps like 4 times. And then with tension still on this, I'm going to wiggle it back and forth and break it off. So you can see that lead's on there. And then just take some scissors and cut off the other part. These synthetic scissors, I've really been trying to break them. I've been cutting wire with them, lead, everything, and they just won't dull. These are Curtis's scissors, so I don't give a crap if I break them. So now if I shove that forward, you can see how nice that seats that bead. It's not going to wobble around when we're tying. So now we're going to take some articulation wire, tie it in right behind where that lead is with some facing forward. We'll take some nuclear corn colored articulation beads and throw them on there. So when you're putting this back half of the fly on, you don't want to pull it up too tight. You want to make sure your beads have a little bit of travel room there. And then you really want to reinforce this part of the fly where the beads are going to be rubbing against that thread. And go forward and trim it. So now with those wires, I'm just going to fold those back and tie them down. One point or two as I'm coming over these ends that I just cut, I want to release or relieve a lot of the pressure off my thread because it's a pretty sharp edge and it will cut your thread. Okay, now with everything tied in, I like to take the back hook, stick it in this material clip and pull it out of the way and super glue the thread. Okay, so for this front body, it's a little bit different. I'm going to use, instead of the gold tinsel chenille, I'm going to use a little bit more bulky Montana Fly lucent chenille on it. And instead of schlappen, I'm going to actually stick a piece of marabou in the twist. So you'll see how that works. Okay, so this portion of the marabou that I'm going to tie in is going to be a little bit shorter and not as full as the back, as the main tail. The reason I cut it right there is because that's right at the edge of my lead. So this time I'm going to take my polar chenille, and it really doesn't matter which part of this body you tie in first, as long as they're all in there. This is the small lucent chenille in gold UV. And now I like to pick through my marabou and find pieces that have a really narrow stem and that have pretty full plumes on it. So this is an ideal candidate for this complex twist bugger. And I'm going to find the tip of the marabou and just tie it in right by the tip. Now keep in mind that by doing this, you got to be really careful until after it's twisted up, because it will break. But once it's twisted up in the body, it becomes just part of the body, very durable. Okay, so I'm going to take the marabou, the lucent chenille, and the polar chenille and lay them all on top of each other. And this is trying to mat down, so you gotta kind of tweak it out a little bit. Now don't pull the marabou super tight on this. In fact, I like to back it off just a little bit so that there's a little bit of play in the stem. Attach the gaiter grips, and this time again you're going to want to just spin it a little bit at first to get it started. And you can see right here this marabou starting to bind down. So you come in with your comb and you brush it all out very gently, and then you just kind of keep going until the rest of the marabou twists up. Okay, so once you have it all twisted up, you're going to have to play with these fibers a little bit more than you did on the back half to make sure you don't mat down a lot of the marabou. So tie it off with one wrap behind and several in front, and that usually holds it in place really well. Now this is all a jumbled mess right now still, so just like we do with a lot of our flies, you know, once we get to this point, we're going to come in with our trusty comb and brush it out. So you can see that makes a pretty killer front body for that complex twist thinker. Another thing that I've changed on the complex twist bugger is the way that I tie in the eye stub at the front of it. So I'm going to take this clump of eye stub and just put it right on top of the bead and make two fairly loose wraps, and then pull it down so it seats it right into that cone head, and then pull it back. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. But because I pulled the top section back, it's out of the way, and I can tie another clump of dubbing in on the bottom. So again, two fairly loose wraps, and then I'm pulling it tight. And you could even use GSP for this part to get it super tight up in there. So once you have that in, you can reinforce those wraps with some more wraps right behind the cone. But now you can see there's really no space between the cone and the dubbing, so it makes for a really clean head. And to finish it off, you brush out that eye stub. That flows right into the rest of the fly. Now, if you guys want to add rubber legs to the head or the back or whatever, that's up to you. Go for it. One thing that I've also been doing is I will make sure that I take some head cement and go in behind that bead and head cement this fly in place. Anyway, that's the articulated complex twist bugger. This has been a really popular pattern that's been requested quite a bit, but just the same colors that we've done these in the past, where they're black and olive and brown, all those colors would work as well.